The phone buzzed on the nightstand. A sharp vibration that sliced through the silence of Julian Carter's tiny Brooklyn apartment. It was 2 a.m. And the name flashing on the screen, Elliot Pierce, sent a jolt of dread through him. His boss. The cold, unyielding CEO of Pierce & Co. Never called unless something was wrong. Julian hesitated, his thumb hovering over the screen. Elliot's sharp voice echoed in his mind. The way it cut through meetings like a blade. Always directed at him, Carter. This report is subpar. Redo it. Or Carter, you're wasting my time. For 2 years. Julian had endured it. Convinced Elliot despised him. But he needed this job. New York wasn't cheap. And dreams of being a playwright didn't pay the rent. He tapped the screen and lifted the phone to his ear, bracing for another lecture. Julian. Elliot's voice was low, slurred. Not the usual steel. Don't quit. Please. I know I'm an asshole. But I need you. Right here. With me. The line went dead before Julian could respond. He stared at the phone, heart pounding. Was this a prank? Elliot Pierce, the man who barely acknowledged his existence outside of criticism, begging him not to leave. He replayed the voicemail, the raw edge in Elliot's voice sending shivers down his spine. This wasn't the Elliot he knew, the polished, ruthless leader of a Manhattan marketing empire. This was someone broken. Ginger. Julian sat on the edge of his bed, the voicemail looping in his head. He'd listened to it 5 times already, each word burning deeper into his chest. I need you. What the hell did that mean? He rubbed his face, trying to process it. Elliot Pierce, his impossible boss, was drunk and pleading with him to stay. The city's late-night hum faded as Julian's world tilted. He didn't sleep that night. The next morning, he walked into the sleek, glass-walled office of Pierce & Co. on West 57th Street, his stomach churning. Elliot was already there, standing by the window, his tall frame silhouetted against the morning light. He turned as Julian entered, his face unreadable, those piercing blue eyes locking onto him. Carter. Good. You're here early. Elliot's tone was back to its usual clipped precision. No trace of last night's vulnerability. We need to discuss the Thompson account. Julian nodded, his throat tight. Of course, sir. The meeting was brutal. Elliot tore through Julian's latest campaign proposal with surgical precision, pointing out flaws in the budget projections and creative direction. By the end, Julian felt like he'd been run over by a truck. He retreated to his cubicle, replaying the voicemail in his mind, searching for clues. Was it a mistake? A drunken confession? Or something more? He didn't know Elliot well outside of work. The man was a fortress private, guarded, his personal life a black box. Julian had heard rumors. Elliot's expensive suits, his corner office with a view of the Hudson, the way he commanded a room. Some whispered he was married to his work. Others that he'd had a string of brief, discreet relationships with men and women alike. But nothing concrete. Elliot was a cipher. That afternoon, Julian overheard a conversation in the break room. 2 senior execs, laughing over coffee, mentioned Elliot's late night at a bar in the Flatiron District. He was so wasted, one said. Kept talking about some guy he couldn't lose. Carter, I think. Julian's heart skipped a beat. He ducked out of the break room, his mind racing. He needed to talk to Elliot. But how? The man was a storm cloud, unpredictable and intimidating. Julian decided to wait until the end of the day. 6 p.m. The office was nearly empty. Julian knocked on Elliot's door, his palms sweaty. "Mr. Pierce, can we talk?" Elliot looked up from his laptop, his expression unreadable. "Carter, what is it?" Julian took a deep breath. "About your voicemail last night." Elliot's face hardened, but his eyes flickered with something fear. "I was drunk. It was a mistake. Forget it. Forget it." Julian's voice rose, a rare crack in his composure. "You said you needed me. Begged me not to leave. That's not nothing." Elliot stood, his chair scraping back. "I said forget it, Carter." His voice was sharp, but his hands twitched, betraying him. "I don't know what you thought you heard, but I was out of my mind. Drop it." Julian didn't move. "I'm not dropping it. I need to know what you meant." Elliot's jaw clenched, his silence a wall. Finally, he turned toward the window. "You're a good employee, Julian. That's all I meant. We'd be worse off without you." It wasn't the truth. Julian felt it in his bones. But he nodded, muttered, "Understood, sir," and left the office, his chest tight with unspoken questions. The next few weeks were a blur of late nights and tense meetings. Elliot's demeanor never softened. No more voicemails. No hints of that raw, pleading voice. Julian threw himself into work, rewriting proposals, tweaking campaigns, trying to bury the memory of that call. But it lingered, a ghost in his thoughts. One evening, Julian stayed late, working on a pitch for a new client. The office was quiet, the city skyline glowing beyond the windows. He heard footsteps and turned to see Elliot standing in the doorway of the conference room. His tie loosened, a rare crack in his polished armor. "You're still here," Elliot said, his voice softer than usual. Julian nodded, his throat dry. "Just finishing the pitch for tomorrow." Elliot stepped closer, his presence filling the room. "You're good at this, Julian. Too good. I push you hard because I see what you're capable of." Julian blinked, caught off guard. A compliment from Elliot Pierce was like finding water in the desert. "Thank you, sir." Elliot lingered, his eyes searching Julian's face. "You don't have to call me sir when we're alone." Julian's pulse quickened. "Okay, Elliot." A faint smile flickered across Elliot's face. Gone in an instant. "Go home, Julian. Get some rest." Julian packed up, his mind spinning. That night, he lay awake, replaying every word, every glance, the voicemail, the late-night bar stories. Elliot's fleeting softness, it was all starting to form a picture he couldn't quite believe. A month later, everything changed. Julian was in Central Park during lunch, sitting on a bench, when Elliot appeared, uncharacteristically casual in a dark sweater and jeans. He sat beside Julian, silent for a moment, staring at the joggers and dog walkers. "I owe you an apology," Elliot said finally, his voice low. "That voicemail, I meant it." Julian's heart stopped. "You meant it?" Elliot nodded, his eyes fixed on the ground. "I've been hard on you because I'm scared. Scared of how much I feel about you." The world seemed to pause. Julian's breath caught as Elliot's words sank in. "Feel about me?" Elliot turned, his blue eyes raw. You're brilliant, Julian. Dedicated. You challenge me in ways no one else does. I've been pushing you away because I didn't want to face it. Julian's mind reeled. He'd spent 2 years thinking Elliot hated him, enduring his sharp critiques, never imagining this. Face what? Elliot. Elliot's jaw tightened, his voice barely a whisper. That I'm in love with you. The confession hit like a lightning bolt. Julian stood, pacing a few steps, trying to ground himself. You're in love with me. You've been tearing me apart in meetings for 2 years. Elliot followed, standing close. I know. I'm not good at this. I thought if I kept you at a distance, I could control it. But I can't. Julian's eyes burned, his voice shaking. Why didn't you say something sooner? I'm your boss, Elliot said, his tone heavy. It's complicated. I didn't want to risk your career or mine. But that night, drunk, couldn't hold it back. They sat again, the air thick with tension. Julian's mind raced, piecing together every harsh word, every late-night call. I thought you hated me. I hated how much I needed you, Elliot admitted, his hand brushing Julian's on the bench. The touch was electric, fleeting. Julian's heart ached. He wanted to reach out, to close the gap, but fear held him back. What do we do now? Elliot's eyes softened, a rare vulnerability. I don't know, Julian, but I don't want to lose you. The following weeks were a tightrope walk. Julian wrestled with his own feelings, a storm of confusion and hope. He'd always admired Elliot, his brilliance, his intensity, but love. It was a revelation that turned his world upside down. He started noticing things he'd missed, the way Elliot's eyes lingered, the rare moments of warmth beneath the steel. One evening, Julian found himself alone with Elliot in the office elevator, heading to the lobby after a long day. The air was heavy, the silence charged. You've been quiet lately, Elliot said, his voice softer than usual. Julian met his gaze. Been trying to figure out how I feel about you. Elliot's eyebrow arched, a flicker of hope in his eyes. And Julian swallowed hard. I think I've been falling for you too. But I'm scared. Elliot, you're my boss. Elliot stepped closer, the elevator walls closing in. I know. I'm scared too. But we'll figure it out. Together. The doors opened, and they stepped into the bustling lobby, the weight of the moment lingering. Julian's heart raced, a mix of fear and exhilaration. He'd spent 2 years misreading Elliot's heart. And now, everything was different. Their first date was a quiet dinner at a small Italian place in the West Village. Elliot was nervous, his usual confidence replaced by hesitant glances and careful words. Julian felt the same, his heart pounding as they sat across from each other. Candlelight flickering. You look different outside the office, Elliot said, his voice warm. Julian smiled, his nerves easing. So do you. Less terrifying. Elliot laughed, a rare, beautiful sound. I'm not that bad, am I? Sometimes, Julian teased, sipping his wine. But I'm starting to see the real you. They talked for hours, the conversation flowing easily. Work, dreams, fears. Elliot opened up about his past, the pressure of leading a company, the fear of being outed in a cutthroat industry. Julian shared his own story, growing up in a small Ohio town, hiding who he was until he escaped to New York. As they walked through the village afterward, Elliot's hand brushed Julian's, then held it. The touch was warm, grounding. "I've never done this before," Elliot admitted. "Not like this." Julian squeezed his hand. "Me neither. But it feels right." They stopped under a streetlight, and Elliot leaned in, his lips soft and tentative. Julian kissed him back, his heart soaring, the city fading away. It was their first kiss, a quiet promise in the chaos of New York. The next few months were a whirlwind. They kept it secret, stealing moments in empty conference rooms, late-night walks, and quiet dinners. Julian learned to read Elliot's edges, the softness beneath the sharp exterior. Elliot learned to let his guard down, sharing stories of his childhood, his fears of losing control. One night, in Elliot's sleek Upper West Side apartment, they lay on the couch, city lights sparkling outside. Elliot traced circles on Julian's palm, his voice low. "I'm still scared of screwing this up." Julian turned, cupping Elliot's face. "We're both new at this, but I'm not going anywhere." Elliot kissed him, deep and sure, and Julian felt the last of his doubts melt away. They were in this together, navigating uncharted waters. A year later, they stood in Central Park again, this time hand in hand, the autumn leaves crunching underfoot. Elliot had resigned as CEO, passing the torch to focus on a new Venturia nonprofit for queer youth. Julian had been promoted, now leading campaigns with the same fire Elliot once wielded. "I was wrong about you," Elliot said, his voice steady, warm. "I thought I could keep you at a distance. I thought I could control everything." Julian grinned, leaning into him. "You were never in control of this." Elliot laughed, pulling Julian close. "You're right. You've had my heart from the start." They'd faced challenges, whispers at work, family doubts, the weight of their own fears. But they built something real, something stronger than the city's concrete. Julian had grown into his own power, no longer the nervous assistant but a confident leader. Elliot had found peace, no longer hiding behind a cold facade. They moved in together, a cozy apartment in Brooklyn filled with books, scripts, and shared dreams. One evening, under the same starry sky where it all began, Elliot knelt on one knee, a small box in his hand. "Julian Carter, you've changed my life. Marry me." Julian's eyes filled with tears, his voice breaking. "Yes, always." The ring slid onto his finger, a simple band of gold, and they kissed, the world falling away. They'd fought for this love, through misunderstandings, fear, and time. It wasn't perfect, but it was there's a love that started with a drunken voicemail and became there forever. Their wedding was small, a rooftop ceremony with close friends and family. The city skyline their backdrop. Julian's vows were heartfelt, promising to stand by Elliot through every storm. Elliot's words were steady, a vow to love fiercely, openly, always. As they danced under the stars, Julian whispered, "I thought you hated me." Elliot smiled, holding him close. "I loved you the whole time." Their love was a journey, from sharp words to soft kisses, from fear to freedom. They'd built a life together, one truthful moment at a time, proving love could thrive in the heart of the city that never sleeps.